placating to gRapists is biblical. It is unfortunate and it is true. Let's talk about King David, because we are seeing what I am coining the David complex reoccur time and time again in our media, in our neighborhoods, and in our families. So before everybody gets all up in a bunch, I would just like to remind folks, I grew up in the church. I was one of those kids that spent at least 5 of every 7 days out of the week in church. I did all the Sunday school. I did all the missionettes. I started leading vacation Bible school. I've done one-on-ones. I've done mentorship. I did oh my gosh, the amount of conventions and the fine arts festivals I know what I'm talking about. Also, while I'm introducing myself, hello. For those of you who are new here, my name is Shayna. I'm a journalist. On this page, I talk a lot about decentering men, child-free living. Any of that sounds like a vibe, please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to book a one-on-one call, take any of the classes where I teach you how to write for money, become a journalist, or if you want to give me a gift, or if you want to be a part of the Patreon community, everything is in the description. Now, let's dive in. Now, who is David? For those of you who may not have grown up drowning in scripture like I did. David is, dare I say, one of probably the most famous king in scripture. His stories are all through, I think, 1st and 2nd Samuel and another book that I can't remember off the top of my head. It was David and Goliath. It was it was David versus Saul. It was David was amped up in the Bible. David was a big deal. And even leading into the New Testament, it was a big deal that whoever the Christ would be would come from the line of David. Why? Because as I remember it, once again, feel free to correct me in the comment section, but David was a man after God's own heart, or closest to God's own heart. One of those two things. It was really driven home that when it comes to the relationship that God, the Christian God, could have with man, Moses got as close as a person could get. Next to that, outside of Jesus himself, was David. David was hailed as a brilliant politician, holy man, and warrior throughout by multiple nations. Blessings fell upon the nation of Israel during this time. And he was also a murderer and a gRapist. But people don't like to talk about those last two, especially that last one. So iconically, and I'm fast forwarding through a lot, David was supposed to be at war, and he wasn't. He was just kind of chilling in his castle, and then he was out and he saw a woman bathing, and he said, I likes that, I want that, bring that over here. And then that lady, who was just peacefully in her home, was brought to the castle and then had to have relations with David. Turns out that she got pregnant from that, and then David was like, oop, you're married, and not just married, but you're married to somebody that is in my inner court. I'm going to send your husband out to the front line so that way he can not make it, so that way this could all kind of not be the worst. And guess what? It did become the worst. So one of the things that comes and results of this is David writes about half of the Psalms, which are very poetically written, but it's really just his sad boy rantings to the Lord, being like, uh-oh, I did a bad thing, and now I'm facing the consequences of my actions. And yes, he was praised for his penmanship, which yeah, absolutely. He was a very good writer, but also we don't really talk about what happened to Bathsheba, the woman that was forced to have relations with the king, the most highly ranked person in her world at this time. Oh, but Shayna, she could have said no, could she? Could she really? So let's just talk about what happened to Bathsheba. So the Lord took her first child, aka her first child died. But the Lord took her first child to punish David. She went through the whole experience of having been raped, becoming pregnant, going through the trials and tribulations that is pregnancy, and then having this baby taken by the Lord to punish a man. She also then had more kids with David. She had 4 sons, one of which was Solomon, which then became King Solomon, who we will talk a little bit more about later. But imagine being forced to have more schmacks with the person that killed who your actual husband was, who, dare I say, she loved. You now have to have more schmecks with this person. Because once again, what are you allowed to say no? Now let's talk very briefly about Solomon. Solomon was hailed as the wise king. And I want to think about this in another way. Was he incredibly wise just because he happened to be born with a special brain? I don't know. Or maybe he had a mother who spoke to him from a place of empathy because she was trapped. And she was like, in the very least, let me make sure that my sons know how to act to the best of my capabilities. And Solomon happened to be the one that listened. Or maybe the other sons did, and we just don't hear too much about them. But also, Solomon followed in his father's footsteps by having a consistent lack of sexual discipline. So let's talk about what happened to David's kids, because he had a number of them. So we're going to talk about two of them. So one of them had over 1,000 wives and concubines, and that was Solomon. Yeah, a number of them could have been for like land disputes and all of that, but 1,000? To be praised for your wisdom while exhibiting zero sexual discipline says an awful lot. And now let's talk about, actually it's a couple of his kids, because it's Tamar and then another one of his sons. So his daughter Tamar was raped by one of her half-siblings, who was also one of David's kids. And then one of their brothers killed the gRapist brother. And then I think Tamar was just like, you know what, I'm going to go off and live in a nunnery. My life is, there's a lot that's happening here. So when I say the David complex, I mean the way that the lack of self-control is passed down from generation to generation if it is not addressed. David, through the women that he was with, not only birthed multiple men, that boys that grew into men that lacked discipline, but he also birthed another victim. Let's refer back to the handy. There was no restorative justice for the women in this story. There was no restorative justice ever historically for Bathsheba or for Tamar. Life just continued on in their pain and in their trappedness, and history glosses over them. Meanwhile, the men in the story are still praised to this day. How many Davids do you know in real life? How many Solomons do you know in real life? Yes, those names come from these stories. And these patterns are still in effect today. Oh, but he was such a good student or athlete or father or brother or pastor. Oh, the Lord forgave him. You should too. Let your pain be a testimony, and then let the Lord deal with him. It's all the same thing. Meanwhile, people make jokes about Bathsheba being like, oh, well, it wasn't her name. Nobody names their kids Bathsheba. All she did, all of this, because one woman had the audacity to feel like she could take a shower in her own home safely. I don't know too many churches that feel comfortable taking it there. And because of that, I don't know too many churches that will force the villains that are in their pews to take full accountability. Because the villains that are in the pages of that good book are still being praised to this day. But listen, my name is just Shayna. What do I know? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave your thoughts in the comment section and send this to somebody to have a conversation on a Sunday. That's all I gotta say. Stay safe out there.